Well, joining us now is Dr. Ladan Salihu. He is a former Director General of the Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria. Good to see you and thanks for your time. These are not normal times for Nigeria, and at the moment many are asking questions as to what the government and every leadership strata should do. First, let us in on the dynamics at play now. It looks like a hunger protest, cost of living protest. They call it bad governance. What are those things we seem not to be getting right, starting with perhaps the government?
Thank you for having me. We are, in my own view, we are in a season of anomy, a season of political anomy. We are in a quandary. We are in a state of conundrum of all sorts, political, economic, and social. The protests are a manifestation of the issues that have bedeviled the Nigerian state over the years, and especially in the last, 8, 6, 2 years, 1 year, up to this moment. And it appears that the authorities concerned do not seem to read the signs, do not seem to understand the precarious nature of the Nigerian state. We do not seem to even appreciate the fact that these youths, these various groups that have been protesting, have given the signs within the course of the last 6 months that due to the state of the nation, we are in dire straits. There's hunger in the land, there's starvation, there are issues of misgovernance, bad governance, insecurity, and a plethora of issues that have been bicycled all over the media. I don't need to revisit them. But what is happening is that these hydra-headed monsters that we're talking about are largely responsible for the protests. One would have expected that the Nigerian state and the minders of the president and those in charge of the management of information would have read the signs and would have sat down in a situation room, a war situation room, sort of, a crisis situation room, to debate, to analyze, to make SWOT analysis of the areas of strengths, weaknesses, and what have you, and advise the president holistically, but advise him truly. It does appear from my little experience of the days that I was a reporter in Ladan barracks to the time that I covered the presidency up to the presidential villa some a decade and a half ago. There are people in government that are afraid to look at their principal in the face and say, Mr. President, there is a problem with this and this and that. They are afraid that they might lose their jobs. And so you have a president that is almost literally cocooned within the presidential villa, not probably given the requisite information. Probably he does not have the kind of knowledge that will make him come up with an informed decision. Or people are just applying a laissez-faire attitude and approach to issues that are critical to our national survival. And they don't seem to worry.
I wonder what could be responsible for that. Is it the body language of the man at the helm of affairs? In this case, President Bola Tinubu. Is he being imperial in his attitude that makes his subordinates, his ministers, his aides, not to be able to tell him straight to his face that, Mr. President, things aren't going too well in Nigeria?
Partly so. I have had a course to say on this network, a couple of months ago, that when people, told us about the credentials of the president coming on board as a candidate and now as a president, they paraded his credentials, leading Lagos. But at the time he left Lagos, there was a 12-year interregnum between Fashola and Ambode, and another probably 4 years of Sanwo-Olu. So there appears to have been a situation where we have a president that does not have the sufficient knowledge of leading a nation at the national level and coming with the mindset of Lagos. And in Lagos, he was, like you said, an imperial leader. But that is not to say, I know you inferred, but that is not to say that the president is not smart,
right,
or that he is not competent to lead Nigeria. No, it is, we are all in this together. Right now, as I speak to you, what I expected was to have seen the minders of the president, everybody, coming on board.
I'd like you to land on that. So sorry, I need to, come in again.
Yes.
Can we really put all of the blame at the doorstep of the president? What about the governors who are closer to the people? And let's even narrow it down to how, this protest went on in the North generally, in spite of there's a Northeast Development Commission, there's a Northwest Development Commission that was just set up only recently.
Yes.
Does it say a lot about the level of discontent in the North? And can you put all the blame at the doorstep of the president?
No, not at all. The president said it himself that the buck stops at his desk.
Right.
All right? And Nigerians elected the president to perform, to deliver on good governance. And so the president cannot escape our scrutiny and criticism. When you look at the governors, the character, the behavior, the way they lead, mostly in you're talking about the northern governors, right? But governors generally, there is this display of extravagance, of obscene opulence. Convoys that will drag 15 to 20 cars. And not only the governor's convoys, no, you have the convoys of their first ladies. And the governors are sitting on, it's like an empire. They call the shots. They do everything. And the Nigerian population, the Nigerian public, the peasants, the laymen that we think don't understand what is happening, you can cut, there is palpable discontent and anger that you can literally cut through with knife. In the North, if I take a minute to land. In the North, we have, a biting state of insecurity. Sokoto, Zamfara, Kebbi, and Katsina are literally on a lockdown. There is hardly more than 15 to 25% of agricultural activities going on in those states. The lands, the territories have been taken over and overridden by bandits. So people are no longer on the farms. People are angry. They're not asking for you to build roads for them or create, estates for them. They are only asking for a measure of security to be in place so that they can get back to
Dr.
their
Salihu,
normal lives.
Do we understand the implication of what we're dealing with? Listening to you, one is tempted to ask the long-term implication of these protests, these hunger protests in the Northeast and specifically in northern Nigeria. Do the people, the leadership of Nigeria, northern Nigeria, Northeast, understand the dire situation which you just painted?
I think they are completely detached from the people. They are detached from the people in the sense that they would rather deal with courtiers. They would rather deal with people that will be the yes men, that will tell them what they want to hear instead of what obtains on ground. The governors would rather deal with their yes men, their surrogates, and their pretenders all over. How do you explain the level of poverty in the north? And you have governors. The president just said a couple of weeks ago, a couple of days ago, through the Minister of Information, the amount of money that was released by the federal government to states. Until that information came out, some of us didn't even know.
So what are the officers or the appointees of the government, of the governor, of the president afraid of? You've seen best of both worlds. You worked with during the, I'm coming, let me drop this. And now you get into some people who are afraid to say the way it is. They first were appointed as advisors. How do they play their jobs or their resume at the end of the day, working with the officers who appointed them?
Let me draw a kind of let me give you a narrative, something that happened with Dr. Reuben Abati, myself, and former President Goodluck Jonathan. When former President Muhammadu Buhari, while campaigning in Kaduna, and Shehu Dahiru Bauchi there was an attempted assassination on them. And I was away, I was out of the country in Jeddah. And there was a phone call from the presidential villa. Hello, this is Reuben Abati. Hold on, Mr. President wants to speak to you. I was like, what? And President Goodluck Jonathan said, look, we have this problem in Kaduna, and you are supposed to be on ground in Kaduna. What are you going to do about it? And I told Mr. President through, Dr. Reuben Abati that, look, we will get to work. We will come back and make sure we open up the communication for people to ventilate their anger and for government minders to speak to the people. And that was what we did. But right now, you have people who sit back, who are so comfortable in their zones and are so afraid to come out and speak to the president on behalf of the Nigerian state. That is their job.
We'll have to leave it there. Dr. Ladan Salihu, former DG, Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria, thank you so much for joining us. It is a continuing conversation. We'll have you again.
Thank you for having me.